YouTube channel. I am just Jen, writer of many things. Today's Sunday, January 26th, and I don't make this stuff up. Welcome to Bible 101. I don't plan this. It's not premeditated. I don't study and then look for things to make these Bible 101 videos out of. It just happens that way because God is real and God is love. And Jesus is Lord and King over all the universe. God is majesty. He's a retired king to which Jesus works under in dealing with what's happening in the world. And on that note, that means I have a ton of faith that things are going to work out and that I want to share what happened to me yesterday going to work after reading the Bible, because this is what I do every day, almost every day. It is okay to sometimes not read the Bible for a day or two and take a rest, listen to gospel music, do other things. But for the most part, it is pretty important to stay on track with your regular study rituals. The blessing is just overwhelming. The leaps and bounds you are ahead of everything and looking around you in the world and understanding what's going on. And henceforth, what happened to me yesterday. So before I go to work again today, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. I'm working on a Sunday, which, by the way, in my adult life, I've never done 3 months of working on a Sunday ever. But I love what I do with the kids, with the autism network that I'm working for. And since I do have my own ordination, as in I can baptize and minister, I sort of have my own church. I am my church, me, right? So because I am so active in my own personal scripture study, it is okay. Socializing at church is important, but it is not the temple that matters the most. It's our body that matters the most. That's the temple that matters with our God and what we believe in. So yesterday, I read a story, which I'm going to read to you in Chronicles. So it's in 2 Chronicles, chapter 25, about Amaziah, king of Judah. Now, I'm working my way through all of Chronicles, and I was also really eating up parts of Kings. So I will go back and connect another story that I was misplacing on another video previously, which plays in together with all of this. But for the sake of time, I don't think I can get that one shared now. And about God's attitude and his answer and his perspective to everything. It's not okay to be double-minded. You can't have a split personality about it. You can't be good and bad at the same time. Love is not an option. And I don't know who said that love is an option. It's not an option, right? You cannot live without a soul. We cannot live in a soulless society. Then you have no world and everything dies and the lights turn out. I much prefer lights. Lights on there, and lights on in me. So no matter what you do to my body, you can't have my soul. And the love that's in there, windows to the soul, is never going to turn out, and it's not going to lose its faith and belief and following in the true God and Jesus Christ and the truth. That has been available for people to read and find in their own discovery in books and online for thousands of years. The 2000 that Jesus has been resurrected and living in heaven as king. Well, people have had a long time to work this stuff out, and slowly through my Bible 101 classes, I will share that information with Justin, Doug Ford, which I look forward to becoming friends with. I think that's going to be a really nice change in the memory and honor of his brother, who was also a pretty good guy, big heart, and with Mr. Eby, Donald, Elon, and basically the world. You can't go any further or do much more without the scriptures. You need prayer and Holy Spirit and somebody that can counsel everyone on what is right to do, and have the evidence given them that it is right, and then understand the consequences or the price paid if you do wrong after being told what is right. So that's how I got into making this video today. I'm going to read the story of Amaziah, king of Judah, in 2 Chronicles 25. Go ahead, grab yourself any Bible, any Christian Bible, and read this story there, and read it slowly and carefully and meditate on it for yourself, and I'm pretty sure you'll come to the same understanding and conclusion on it. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoiadin. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. After the kingdom was firmly in his control, he executed the officials who had murdered his father the king. Yet he did not put their sons to death, but acted in accordance with what is written in the law, in the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sins. Now, I still think that's correct. A father and a son are separate people, and we should be judged separately once we're adults and capable of that. So unless there was something we were missing about how bad they were, I'm not sure about that part. But as you go on in the story, you understand more about what God's problem was here. Amaziah called the people of Judah together and assigned them according to their families to commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds for all Judah and Benjamin. He then mustered those 20 years old or more and found that there were 300,000 men ready for military service, able to handle the spear and shield. He also hired 100,000 fighting men from Israel for 100 talents of silver. But a man of God came to him and said, O king, these troops from Israel must not march with you, for the Lord God, Jehovah, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the one true God, is not with Israel, not with any of the people of Ephraim. Even if you go and fight courageously in battle, Jehovah will overthrow you before the enemy, for God has the power to help or to overthrow. Amaziah asked the man of God, but what about the 100 talents I paid for those Israelite troops? The man of God replied, Jehovah can give you much more than that. Money isn't the answer to anything. It's the root of all the problems. So all this ping-ponging back and forth with the politicians, threats about expenses and economies around money is not going to do anything for Jesus. Jesus never used the stuff. He used other people who had it to help him with what he had. He was skilled in carpentry and was able to make things with his own hands. And he can still prove to people how we can live on less and get more of everything. Slowing down your time, having time with your family, traveling, doing more, reversing the damage in the world, and actually having a future. Okay, so I lost where I was. God will overthrow you before the enemy, for God has the power to help or overthrow. Amaziah asked the man of God, but what about the 100 talents I paid for these Israelite troops? That's where I left off. The man of God replied, Jehovah can give you much more than that. Okay, so now in verse 10, we go on to say, so Amaziah dismissed the troops who had come to him from Ephraim and sent them home. They were furious with Judah and left for home in a great rage. Amaziah then marshaled his strength and led his army to the valley of Salt, where he killed 10,000 men of Seir. The army of Judah also captured 10,000 men alive, took them to the top of a cliff, and threw them down so that all were dashed to pieces. Meanwhile, the troops that Amaziah had sent back and had not allowed to take part in the war raided Judean towns from Samaria to Beth Horon. They killed 3,000 people and carried off great quantities of plunder. When Amaziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the gods of the people of Seir. Okay, so this is the connection to what happened to me yesterday going to work. He set up his own gods, these things he got, these idols, the stuff from Seir, and he bowed down to them and burned sacrifices to them. Now the anger of Jehovah, the one true God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him who said, "Why do you consult these people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand?" While he was still speaking, the king said to him, "Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop. Why be struck down?" So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that Jehovah has determined to destroy you, because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel." After Amaziah, king of Judah, consulted his advisors, he sent this challenge to Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel. "Come meet me face to face." But Jehoash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon. Give your daughter to my son in marriage." Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall and that of Judah also? Amaziah, however, would not listen, for God so worked it that he might hand them over to Jehoash, because they sought the gods of Edom. So Jehoash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Joash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, a section about 600 feet long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of God that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and the hostages, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign from beginning to end, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? From the time that Amaziah turned away from following the Lord, they conspired against him in Jerusalem. And he fled to Lachish, but they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried with his fathers in the city of Judah. Now, the whole book of Chronicles goes on and on about the different kings in the lines, up and down, good and bad, with God in and above the picture with what they're doing. So I do recommend that right now, because of what's going on in the world, that people read the books of Kings and Chronicles. It's very vital to what's going on. So I have a picture yesterday of two different cars sitting next to each other with these female idol worshiping things on the dashboards of their cars. And that's a no-no, as we just read in this story, because you just heard God say, you either worship me wholeheartedly or I can't use you. It's out of the question. And I went to work after reading this and saw that. And it's one thing to have your own thing at home that you do that nobody sees you do, but it's entirely another when you're driving around for the whole world to see what you're doing in your car with this thing looking at you that you're looking at like you're driving, as if it's going to give you careful driving luck or something. You can't do that in a land where it was built on the Bible, off the word of God, after God's instructions. It's against the law to do that. It's anti-God. And that thing that Justin is doing with the green light in Parliament and other stuff, that's going against the gospel of Jesus Christ, going against the message of God. He's not trying to help our country build a future. He's trying to earn a living, make money for himself, have an image for himself, put himself first before the people. Yesterday, I also took pictures randomly of 3 different white homeless people in their homeland, to which they were capable of being trained and given work within their physical means and age. Well, all of the places of employment that I was around in that surrounding were mostly filled with immigrants. Now, I'm not going to be partial as to what immigrants, I'm just saying immigrants. And so what I'm trying to say is, because of all of the crime that's going on in Canada, my mission in this is I'm going to start focusing on those crimes. I'm going to start finding the names that are publicly available, even pictures. And I'm going to start saying the names and showing the pictures. And I'm going to start talking about the crimes and all of the unsolved murders and all the names of those victims and all the crimes that they have gotten so far in investigation but refused to go any further about and decide whether or not it's murder or something else, even though you've definitely found somebody dead. I'm going to talk about that too. I'm going to go through all the names. I'm going to try to mention as many as I can find. So it's a big mess. These crimes go all the way back to the residential nightmare when they were trying to integrate the Aboriginal peoples into the Christian Trinity Catholic world of September to June school system, which is actually the opposite of their hunting season and their cycle of life and their way of living. They had learned how to live in the world on this earth without money. They never needed to earn anything. They didn't need to work in the sense of the work we live in today. And when it was beginning to happen, they were so lost and confused and baffled. They didn't understand it. They didn't get the point of greed. And they're right. Sharing and caring and love goes much further away. They had appropriate rituals per season, per event, to thank God, to thank the Creator. That's what they call Him, the Creator and Mother Earth, for the things that go right, for the harvests, for the spring, for the weddings, for the births, and they even remember the deaths. For the hunting season success, to make sure there's enough food for the whole tribe, for the clothing, for the tents, for their horses. Well, that's a little different. A lot of the Aboriginal people were always boats, canoes and stuff. The Blackfoot in the middle where there's just land were the first ones to actually be found riding on horses. So really we should be looking at how to follow their example. Women were allowed to work and they were allowed to stay home. They were allowed to hunt. They were allowed to fish. They were allowed to raise kids. They were allowed to do what they wanted. They were not beaten to the pulp. They didn't have their spines fractured into 11 pieces and have brain injuries on a campaign of abuse because it's a man's right to do what he wants to his wife. So in my Bible videos, what I'm going to do is show background information that goes all the way back to Justin Trudeau's father being Prime Minister in Canada. And this is not stuff that you can make up. It's there available for people to look up openly and find. So keep your eyes out for that information of what is coming around that. It's connected to my childhood. So that's why I'm sharing it, because I have battled a lot of abuse and I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't get it. I'm supposed to be living in a country where I'm supposed to be a free woman, a free person, living in a free country, living under Christianity, which is in the community of Christ, to be allowed to serve the true God, the one and only God. And all of this bad stuff was happening to me. Well, God was filling my head and my heart with all of this goodness. And if it wasn't for that goodness, I probably wouldn't be here today. But thankfully I am, so I can help all of you and maybe others in throughout the world. But I just want to let you know that Jesus is with us and there are changes being made. Things are happening. And I'm going to be a part of that as best as I can. Which Christian movie was it that said, I would rather stand with God and die for what is right than to stand with the world and die for standing for nothing at all, essentially. So I will keep sharing. While I'm gonna put that picture up, I will crop it so nobody can see the kind of car and the driver's licenses, but the picture will go on the front of this video to go with the story that I read yesterday before going to work about the fact that you can't do that. You can't sacrifice our children and our children's children and take our lives and put yourself in those places and take those jobs and call this Canada and call yourself a Canadian and think that you're good or that you're doing good by having one white person in Parliament and call it a liberated country or a functional political system. God has the power Jesus has the power. King Charles has the power to defunct our system, to shut down everything, and that there's no government heads except for the one or two or three that through the Holy Spirit and through Jesus Christ's guidance can then actually take over in making this place safe again. I had a dream last night, and this is something I mentioned in one of my long videos the other night when I was really sick and in bed, after my flopped experience of my first prompt experience at the Inspiration Lab at the library, about two different men sleeping outside of two different apartments in the hallway near apartments with these funky looking red light passports. And it's because of what I said yesterday. So I'm going to close with explaining it to you guys this way about tightening the belt on this land and why I'm saying no partiality. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody. God does love being a father. He does love his children. But at the end of the day, he also knows the hearts of every man, woman, and child. So he knows where these changes need to take place. So it is under the basis of that and the laws that we already have in place, which I am working on, focusing on, following through. So we really messed up when we took away the death penalty. And there are still death penalty prisons. So it is my hope that we can use the death penalty prisons to take people that deserve to be put to death, like the 3 family members of the Sarah Sharif story in the United Kingdom, and within 1 week have their lights knocked out because all 3 of them had their DNA on all the weapons that beat her in a 2-year daily campaign of beatings. There is no excuse for them to be allowed to live. So that is just one thing. Then there's the little black girl whose body was found decomposed, wrapped in plastic, wrapped in blankets, in a garbage can on a property where the building wasn't finished being built in Toronto, a year and a half after she had died, and nobody had reported it. So she would have been about 3 or so, old enough to be in nursery school, old enough to have gone to her first dentist appointment, have a pediatrician, and have other social workers involved in stuff based on the poverty and the money, mother's allowance, child allowance, all that stuff around her life, for somebody to say, hey, where's this child? And, do more to get involved about it. To this day, in the recent stories that I read, they have said, oh, well, we don't know whether it's murder or something else, so we're not laying any charges. We haven't arrested anybody. And they've just left it like that. And that just got under my skin, those 2 girls right there. Never mind the disappearance of Madison Scott over 12 years ago. I was up there in that area of Canada, moving around, trying to find some of those bad people and trying to find some of the proof of what's going on up there in the darkness of their satanic world of worship and service. Because I'm not saying it's any one order of bad thing. I'm just using this Bible stuff as an example on the core base on where we're starting from, where it goes out from. There are a lot of people doing a lot of things wrong. And because we don't have certain laws in place, like a death sentence and prisons big enough for the deadliest criminals, we are having problem. We are releasing bad people who do really bad things again and again and again, and they don't stop doing bad things until they've actually ended their own life. And then you can't penalize them because now they've committed these really bad crimes and then ended their own life. And that's not justice. It's not okay to keep going that far. So from Madison Scott and what happened there, I was up there. I was wearing my Highway of Tears t-shirt that I personally made about women, girls, and stories that were still unsolved. And I put the newest unsolved ones, the most current ones that I was mad about, on the back of my shirt to continue going along the lines with all the missing women from the front of the shirt, where the crimes go all the way back to the 60s up north here in BC, and trying to stay focused to that region. I got pretty spooked because I got pretty close to some very bad guy. I had a very, very close encounter experience spiritually, so I knew I was hot on the tails of something. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough ability to do much more. I'm not legally a police officer, RCMP, or FBI. I have 20 years veteran experience of security work. I'm not a rookie by any means. In my life experience, living on the streets of this country and living in its wilderness and being around its animals and nature, I know how to get around. I know what to look for. I know what I'm doing. I'm a psychology major. So I was on the ball in that. And unfortunately, I still was not able to do anything in time to stop not one, but two girls get reported missing. And unfortunately, the other girl didn't come from a prominent family in a town where they've been for a really long time with money to put posters up and advertise in the news. Please help us find our daughter, get her back, and we'll give you this much of an award. The other girl was just a blip on the radio. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. I'm hurting. I just feel like I'm chasing Freddy Krueger's father. And, Freddy Krueger's father would be dead, right? So it's just like chasing after a dead evil thing. It just doesn't stop, right? And it's not tangible. But I was sitting in the parking lot. I can't make this stuff up, you guys. So I really hope that Robert Downey Jr. hears this. And the people that made Natural Born Killers will get something from this and come and see this. I hope it's still there. But I was in the parking lot of a corner store that was sharing with other businesses in a little outdoor lot when there was a restaurant called Ming's Diner. So that is really reflective and reality based on Natural Born Killers, the movie. And I realized at that point when the radio was on, which I really listen to because I really get sick and tired of American radio in Canada when most of us are European, and I miss the European music and my style of culture and interest being played here. But now all the countries have shut themselves off. So now we're all back to back from each other. We're not sharing in anything together or working together. So we're not able to succeed together financially. Our economies have all just become encircled around our small spaces of ourselves. So this includes entertainment, theater, books, and music. So I don't listen often. But I happen to have the radio on this time, and I go to get out of the truck I was doing flagging work, and the story comes on of this girl in a green car who was reported missing in one of the northern communities there, little towns, white girl, and that her car was found, but she wasn't found. And I didn't get the chance to keep listening because I'm still working and living and doing all my other stuff to actually get her name. So in the process of all my Bible 101 and chasing after the crimes and announcing names and details of things in all of the prompts that I'm doing in these homemade videos here in my apartment, I'm hoping that somehow we'll get access to enough files up there around the time of the disappearance of Madison Scott and the other boy that knew her also, that also was reported missing, and eventually only his head was found in one of those oil drum containers or whatever, and the rest of his body never was. I'm hoping I'll be able to find the name of that girl and identify her, and find out whether or not anything was discovered about her disappearance, because the biggest part of all this is that the living go on living, acting like it is nothing. They don't feel it. It doesn't matter because it's not happening to you. And it doesn't hurt until it does. And by then it's too late to then go, oh, well, now I have to make a difference because now I'm affected by it. I'm hurting. You have to think about all the living families that are losing these people, that are missing these people, that are longing for these people. And if they're alive, wanting them back, and if not, wanting closure. And our policing system, our legal system is not doing right by any of these people. We're not doing justice. Our justice system isn't being used the way it's supposed to be for being the good people we are, for being the good country we're supposed to be, for being the good Canadians we want to be. It's at a point now where I'm going to tell you that it's not safe for vacationers, for the happy-go-lucky tourists to be coming to our country, because even the tourists that are coming here are also being murdered. They're being killed. Okay? They're being found dead, planting trees up north in BC, or found dead somewhere in the prairies, whatever. They're just not getting home. And it's the same for people leaving here to go to certain countries elsewhere, where they're not coming home alive either. They're not being lost necessarily. The bodies are returned. There's closure. But they're being poisoned by alcohol and other things that are destroying lives. So you got to stop traveling back and forth. Like Joan of Arc said, my favorite keychain. Right, I wish I had this little armor outfit so I could kneel before the Lord, my King, and honor his return to the world in style like that impression of Heath Ledger in A Knight's Tale. It had always been my wish to do A Knight's Tale 2 in his honor, or it would have been best if I could have made it with him. That said, I'm still going to try to honor that in all that I'm doing in the videos I make, and I will always use the Bible and scriptures and stories as the basis for all of this stuff. But there needs to be changes, like suggesting a new prison being built in a place where everybody can use it to house the worst criminals in the world, where they cannot escape. And if they do try to escape, that it will be the harsh conditions of the wildlife and the environment around them that will take their lives for us. We need to rethink about self-defense in all schools for children in all areas where there's high alert. We need to rethink about curfews for people of a certain age being out at night and have those alarms going off that if you're out alone, you need to go to like a safe place like they would have had like a block parent, and somebody will take you safely home. But we need to put the guns down on this. We need to rethink about the rights to give people rifles and the license to have those rifles in their trucks and in their trunks for self-defense, and even pistols under their front of their cars when they're driving in certain places, especially at night, never mind the high area regions of where the disappearances and violences are occurring through gangs and guns and domestics issues. The straw that really broke the camel's back for me in the process of starting all of this is the guy in Manitoba that was haunting and stalking his ex. I don't even know how long they've been broken up, but apparently long enough that he should have long since moved on, like dealt with this fact that she's out of his life, and because of what he's like is not coming back. But it just wasn't good enough. He couldn't stop. And she kept moving around. And she kept escaping him. By the grace of God, her life was spared. But in this last attack and attempt in finding her, and her not being there, she escaped through the bushes and the trees. He went to her family's home. I don't know how big her family is. I don't know how many people she has in the family. But he went to one home of her family's. And everybody that was in it, he killed them all. Murdered every single one, slaughtered them, and then he killed himself. So Manitoba has got a lot of bad issues with violent things and domestic issues in it. And there is very little justice done from ground up. And I'm saying that this kind of domestic stuff is happening all over the place, but it's not talked about. I want to explain that 50% of the women get raped, but less than half of them report it because it's so rampant. There's so much of it. There's so many of them out there doing it. The police force cannot take on that amount of crime. It's so overwhelming. And there's already so much unsolved crimes, unopened murder cases. And our police are very wussy. They're very soft-hearted and lovey-dovey. And they don't have the exterior or the armor or the shield. They don't have the tough enough skin to get in there dirty enough to do what they're supposed to do in drawing the line between right and wrong and good and bad, and finding the evidence necessary for Crown's charges to stick, to arrest somebody long enough to rescue an entire family, moving them someplace else and completely giving them witness protection, not because they're a witness to some crime that the federal society needs from them, but for their own safety and protection. I divorced a guy that was like that for my oldest child's sake and mine. Nothing changes in their head. One or both or all are dead. And thus the words I said in making the plan to get out and keep her and me alive instead of the life I could have had. So it's very important that we understand that God's laws are the only laws and the right laws. And I am fine if an uprising takes place where we have all these political buildings just stand empty as like a model of our past. Just use them as museums that people can come in and walk through in tours. And that we redo this from the scriptures with Jesus at the helm. So keep in tune for what's coming up with all of the information about the crimes that I want to share and more of the Bible stuff. I'm going to read. Let's see how much time I have. Okay. I'm going to read next time about the man of God from Judah. But I have to get to work now, so I'm going to end there. Go look up Sarah Sharif. Go just punch up the information about the little black girl who was found in the garbage can in Toronto, who got found only because of anonymous caller. They haven't actually found that anonymous caller. There's been no other tips. So you see how serious it is about the fact that you can't be idol worshiping people in our land. And even if you're not boiling and eating and serving yourselves people as food, like Manasseh did in the Bible and so on and so forth, you still can't do that and live here and call it law. It's not, right? And I'm willing to do anything to go after all the bad people with God's help to do something about it, because something needs to be done. I have had enough. Right? God is not the one going around wiping out the face of the earth this way, and families deserve closure. So, yeah, peace out, guys. Have a good day. Try to stay safe, alive, and warm, and get home to your families tonight, and have a good week ahead. God bless you all. Amen.